The blue light from the holographic display painted strange shadows across the metal walls of the space station floating high above Earth. Admiral Kim Jae-ho stood perfectly still, his dark eyes fixed on the alien creatures appearing before him. Their bodies looked like they were made of living crystal, sharp edges catching the light as they moved. Behind him, his officers watched in nervous silence. The alien leader spoke, and somehow the words came out in perfect Korean through their translation machines. You are the primitive species living on the third planet from your star. You have built ships that travel faster than light. This is not allowed. The Galactic Confederation controls all such technology. Commander Park Min-soo, standing next to the Admiral, felt his hands clench into fists. The way these creatures talked about humans made his blood boil. They spoke like humans were nothing more than wild animals that had learned a new trick. But Admiral Kim Jae-ho showed no emotion at all. His face remained as calm as still water. The alien continued speaking, each word dripping with contempt. You will give us all your fast ships. You will let us rule over your world. You will send us your metals and your people for our experiments. You have 72 hours to agree to this, or we will destroy you. The transmission ended suddenly, leaving the command center in heavy silence. The only sounds were the quiet hum of the station's life support systems and the distant rumble of Earth cities far below. Lieutenant Lee Soo-jin, barely 25, years old and fresh from the Space Academy, was the first to speak. Admiral, sir, she said, her voice trembling slightly. Our sensors show 3 massive fleets approaching our solar system. Each one has more ships than our entire space force. Their weapons are more advanced than anything we have. Their shields are stronger than our strongest attacks. Other officers began murmuring among themselves. Some talked about evacuation plans. Others wondered if they should start preparing surrender documents. The alien fleets were so large that they blocked out stars as they moved through space. How could Earth possibly fight against such overwhelming power? But Admiral Kim Jae-ho had been preparing for this moment for 20 years. Ever since humanity's first deep space telescopes had spotted the alien civilizations that controlled most of the galaxy, he had known this day would come. He had watched as the aliens crushed other young species that dared to reach for the stars. He had studied their tactics, their technology, their weaknesses. Most importantly, he had prepared Earth's response. Lieutenant Lee, he said quietly, his voice carrying easily through the silent room. Connect me to all defense networks. Every base, every ship, every hidden installation we have built over the past 2 decades. It is time to send our answer. The young officer's fingers danced across her control panel. Within seconds, screens throughout the solar system lit up with the Admiral's face. On the moon, where massive railguns lay hidden beneath fake mining operations, soldiers straightened to attention. In the asteroid belt, where hollowed-out rocks concealed entire fleets of attack ships, pilots climbed into their cockpits. On Mars, where underground factories had been building weapons for 20 years, workers stopped their tasks to listen. Admiral Kim Jae-ho looked directly into the camera, knowing that his words would reach every human in the solar system. His voice was calm, but there was steel underneath it. It's a kind of steel that had carried humanity from caves to the stars. My fellow humans, he began. Today we received a message from aliens who call themselves our superiors. They demand that we surrender our freedom, our technology, and our dignity. They want us to become their slaves, just as they have enslaved countless other species across the galaxy. He paused, letting his words sink in. Throughout the solar system, millions of people stopped what they were doing to listen. Earth looked up from their fields. Miners on the moon put down their tools. Children in schools gathered around their teachers. These aliens believe that because they have bigger ships and older technology, they can simply take whatever they want from us. They think that because we are young as a spacefaring species, we are weak. They are about to learn how wrong they are. The Admiral's expression hardened, and when he spoke again, his words carried the weight of humanity's entire history. Every struggle, every victory, every moment when humans had faced impossible odds and found a way to win. We are the species that survived ice ages and plagues. We are the children of people who crossed oceans in wooden boats and climbed mountains because they were there. We are the descendants of farmers who became warriors when their homes were threatened, and warriors who became farmers when the fighting was done. His voice grew stronger, filling the command center and echoing across space to every human outpost. These aliens want negotiation. They expect us to beg for mercy and accept their terms. But we are humans, and we have never bowed to tyrants. We don't negotiate with those who would make us slaves. The transmission ended, but the Admiral's final words continued to ring in the silence. Throughout the solar system, humans began to move with purpose. The die was cast. Aliens would come expecting a frightened, primitive species ready to surrender. Instead, they would find something they had never encountered before: humanity. At war, 3 days passed like a countdown to Judgment Day. Then, exactly when the aliens had promised, their fleets appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system. The ships were so massive that they blocked out entire sections of starlight as they moved forward in perfect lines. There were 3 different groups of aliens, each with their own style of warship. The first group called themselves the Hegemony, and their ships looked like floating metal mountains bristling with weapons. The second group, the Dominion, had sleek silver vessels that moved like deadly sharks through space. The third group, known as the Collective, flew ships with strange geometric shapes that seemed to twist reality around them as they traveled. On the bridge of the largest Hegemony ship, a vessel called the Eternal Dominance, Fleet Commander Vexter looked at the small blue planet ahead with disgust. His species had conquered hundreds of worlds, and this would be no different. The humans were barely crawling out of their home system, while his people had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. Began scanning their cities, he ordered his crew, find their biggest population centers. We will destroy one. To show them our power, then they will surrender like all the others. But far away, hidden in the darkness between planets, Captain Choi Hoyanwoo watched the alien fleets through his ship's sensors. His vessel, the Silent Hunter, was built with special coating that made it nearly invisible to most detection systems. He had been waiting in the cold emptiness of space for 3 days, along with hundreds of other human ships. All units. "This is Phantom Leader," he whispered into his communication system. "The targets are exactly where we expected them to be. Begin Phase 1 of the operation." Captain Choi's words traveled instantly to human forces scattered throughout the solar system. For 20 years, Earth's best engineers and military planners had been preparing for this moment. They had studied every piece of alien technology they could find, often by secretly boarding abandoned alien ships or trading with species that had escaped alien control. What the aliens saw as they entered the solar system looked like a normal collection of planets, moons, and floating space rocks. They had no idea that humanity had spent 2 decades turning their home system into the most dangerous trap in the galaxy. The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter looked like nothing more than scattered chunks of stone and metal, exactly what any species would expect to find. But as Captain Choi gave his signal, the rocks began to change. Hidden panels slid open, revealing massive weapons that had been built inside hollowed-out asteroids. Railguns longer than city blocks emerged from their hiding places, already aimed at the approaching alien fleets. At the same time, thousands of small fighter ships poured out of concealed bays carved into the larger asteroids. These ships were painted black and designed to be as small and fast as possible. Each one carried weapons specifically designed to punch through alien shields and armor. Dr. Han So-young sat in the command center built deep beneath the surface of the moon, watching her computer screens as the trap was sprung. She had helped design many of the weapons now being revealed, working from stolen alien technology blueprints. Her fingers flew across her controls as she coordinated the attack. "First volley is away," she reported to Admiral Kim Jae-ho. "Direct hits on their lead vessels. Their energy shields are trying to adapt to our weapons, but the process is taking them much longer than expected." The aliens had never faced weapons quite like these before. Human railguns fired solid metal projectiles at incredible speeds, creating kinetic impacts that their energy shields struggled to stop. While the aliens had superior technology, they had grown used to fighting enemies who tried to match them with similar weapons. Humans fought differently. Fleet Commander Vexter felt his ship shake as multiple projectiles slammed into its hull. "Possible," he shouted. "These primitives should not have weapons that can damage our ships." The surprises were just beginning. As the alien fleets tried to reorganize their formation, more hidden weapons revealed themselves. Gun platforms that had been disguised as communications satellites opened fire. Missile launchers hidden on the dark side of moons began launching. Waves of guided projectiles. Even some of the smaller asteroids turned out to be completely hollow, filled with human attack ships. The three alien fleets found themselves caught in a crossfire from every direction. No matter which way they turned, more human weapons appeared. The primitive species they had come to conquer had been watching them for years, learning their tactics, studying their weaknesses, preparing specific counters for their advantages. Admiral Kim Jae-ho's voice suddenly filled every communication channel in the solar system, reaching both human and alien ears with equal clarity. "Welcome to the Sol System," he said, his voice calm despite the chaos of battle raging around them. "You came here expecting us to surrender. You thought we would beg for mercy and accept your terms. But we are humans, and we have a different way of handling bullies." The Admiral paused as another wave of human fighters swept past the alien formations, their weapons lighting up the darkness of space. "You wanted to negotiate? Here are our terms. Leave our system now, or learn why humans have never made good slaves." The battle for humanity's freedom had begun. The aliens were already discovering that they had seriously underestimated their primitive opponents. The battle had been going on for 18 hours straight, and the alien commanders could not believe what they were seeing. Their massive fleets, which had conquered hundreds of worlds, were being torn apart by a species they had dismissed as primitive savages. Every minute that passed brought new disasters for the three alien arms. Wing Commander Yu Shanghai spun his small fighter ship through a series of turns that should have killed him instantly. The forces pressing against his body were so strong that they would have crushed the bones of any alien pilot. But Yu had injected himself with special chemicals that helped his body handle the impossible stress. His ship twisted and rolled through space like a leaf in a hurricane, but he remained in perfect control. "Target acquired," he said into his radio, speaking to the 11 other pilots in his squadron. "Remember what my sister found in those stolen blueprints? Hit the joint where the engine connects to the main hull. 3 hits in sequence, just like we practiced." The Dominion heavy cruiser ahead of them was enormous, easily 100 times larger than any human fighter. Its silver hull gleamed with energy shields that could stop most weapons. But engineer Captain Eugenia had spent months studying stolen alien technical documents, and she had found a weakness that the aliens themselves had forgotten about. The 12 human fighters attacked in perfect coordination, their weapons striking the same small section of the enemy ship within seconds of each other. The first hit weakened the joint. The second hit cracked it. The third hit severed the connection completely, and the massive alien cruiser split in half, its engines spinning away into space while its crew compartments went dark. On the bridge of the collective's main vessel, the hive mind coordinator watched in horror as another of its geometric ships was destroyed. The collective species all shared one connected consciousness, which usually made them excellent at coordinating their attacks. But now that shared mind was filled with panic and confusion. "This cannot be happening," it said to itself, its voice echoing through the minds of thousands of its fellow beings. "Their ships are smaller than ours. Their weapons are less advanced. Their numbers are fewer. By every calculation, they should have surrendered within the first hour." But the collective had made the same mistake as the other alien empires. They had assumed that humans would fight the same way every other species fought, trying to match superior technology with superior technology, larger ships with larger ships. They had never encountered an enemy that turned their own strengths against them. Dr. Park Yoon-ji sat in Earth's underground war room, surrounded by computer screens showing every aspect of the battle. She had been studying alien military tactics for 15 years, and she understood exactly why the invaders were losing so badly. "Admiral," she said, speaking into her headset to Kim Jae-ho, "the aliens are fighting the last war they have ever won. was against enemies who tried to beat them at their own game. They have never faced an opponent that refuses to play by their rules. The humans had turned their own desperation into a weapon. While alien crews needed long breaks to recover from high-speed maneuvers, human pilots pushed their bodies and their ships far beyond what any manual said was safe. While alien captains followed the same battle plans that had worked for centuries, human commanders made up new tactics on the spot, doing things that no reasonable species would ever attempt. Captain Otaman was leading a squadron of destroyers against a hegemony battleship when he saw an opportunity that would have been ignored by any sensible military officer. The enemy ship had lowered its rear shields for just a few seconds to launch a wave of missiles. In that brief moment, there was a clear path to the alien vessel's main reactor. "All ships, follow me in," he ordered his squadron. "We are going to fly directly through their missile barrage and hit their power core," was the kind of maneuver that would kill most of his pilots. But Otaman knew that if they could disable that battleship, it would save thousands of human lives. His 8 destroyers accelerated to maximum speed, weaving between exploding missiles and energy beams that lit up space around them. 7 of the ships were destroyed in the first 30 seconds. Captain O's destroyer made it through. His ship, badly damaged and leaking atmosphere, fired every weapon it had directly into the alien reactor. The explosion that followed vaporized both vessels instantly. But the massive hegemony battleship was gone, taking with it the command center for an entire alien fleet. Commander Li Wujin was preparing for an even more desperate attack. The ship was loaded with antimatter explosives, enough to destroy a small moon. The hegemony flagship, the Eternal Dominance, was protected by shields so powerful that no conventional weapon could penetrate them. But Li had studied the shield patterns and found a way to get through, though it would mean certain death for him and his crew. "This is Commander Li to all Earth forces," he said into his radio as his ship accelerated toward the enemy flagship. "Tell my daughter that Daddy kept his promise. Earth stays free." Li's ship hit the alien vessel's shields at the exact moment. They flickered to let the flagship's own weapons fire. The antimatter explosion that followed was visible from Mars. When the light faded, the Eternal Dominance was nothing but scattered debris. The aliens could not understand what they were. Why would anyone sacrifice their life for people they had never met? Why would pilots fly impossible missions that would certainly kill them? The answer was simple, but it was something the alien empires had forgotten after centuries of easy conquests. Humans were fighting for their freedom, their families, and their future, and that was worth any price. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire jumping from tree to tree. Within just a few weeks, every inhabited world had heard the impossible story. A young species called humans, barely able to travel between stars, had completely destroyed 3 of the most powerful fleets in known space. The hegemony, the Dominion, and the Collective had all sent their best warships to crush these upstart primitives, and not one of those ships had returned home. The few alien survivors who managed to escape the battle carried tales that seemed too incredible to believe. They spoke of human pilots who flew suicide missions with smiles on their faces. They described weapons that appeared from nowhere, turning harmless asteroids into deadly fortresses. Most shocking of all, they told of a species that refused to surrender even when facing impossible odds. Captain Kamenho was leading humanity's first deep space exploration mission since the Great Victory when his ship's communication system lit up with an unexpected message. The transmission came from the Zelton system, 5 light-years away from Earth, where a species of blue-skinned humanoids had been slaves to the Dominion for over 2 centuries. "Human ship, this is Zelton Freedom Command," the message said. In broken but understandable English, "We have heard of your victory over the oppressors. We have risen against our Dominion masters, but we need help. Can you assist us in our fight for freedom?" Captain Ko immediately sent the message back to Earth, where Admiral Kim Jae-ho was meeting with the newly formed Human Liberation Council. The Admiral's response came back within hours, and it was exactly what Ko had expected. "Send them everything they need," Admiral Kim ordered. "Weapons, advisors, technical support, whatever it takes. If they want to be free, we will help them stay free." Within days, Human ships were jumping to systems across the galaxy, carrying supplies and expert advisors to species that had never dared to dream of freedom. The effect was like dropping a stone into still water, with ripples spreading outward. In all directions, Major Imselji found herself busier than she had ever been in her military career. One week she was on a desert world teaching cat-like aliens how to build improvised explosives. The next week she was on a frozen planet showing insect-like creatures how to coordinate guerrilla attacks. Each species was different, but the basic principles remained the same. Listen carefully. She told a group of reptilian rebels on a world called Kepler 44b. Their scales were green and gold, and they had been mining precious metals for the Dominion for 300 years. The key to beating a superior enemy is not to match their technology. You will never build ships as big as theirs or weapons as powerful as theirs. That is not how you win. The reptilian leader, whose name translated roughly to Stone Claw, leaned forward with interest. Then how do we fight them? They have ruled us for so long that many of our people have forgotten what freedom looks like. Major Im smiled, remembering her own training back on Earth. You make them fight the wrong war. They expect you to line up your ships against their ships and see who has better weapons. Instead, you hit them where they do not expect it. You attack their supply lines. You strike their communication centers. You make them afraid to land on your world because they never know when or where you will appear. And the reptilian warriors nodded eagerly, their eyes bright with new hope. They had heard the stories of how humans had hidden weapons in asteroids and struck from the darkness of space. Now they were learning how to apply those same tactics to their own fight for freedom. Dr. Jung Hai-won barely slept anymore. As the head of Earth's new Galactic Liberation Technology Division, she was responsible for adapting human weapons and tactics for dozens of different alien species. Each species had different body types, different strengths, and different weaknesses. A weapon that worked perfectly for humans might be useless for a species with different hands or different reflexes. The pulse rifle needs to be modified again, she told her team of engineers as they worked on weapons for a species of bird-like aliens. Their wing arms cannot grip it the same way humans do. We need to redesign the trigger mechanism and rebalance the weight distribution. Above the entrance to her laboratory, she had written a simple message in Korean that had become the motto for her entire department. Freedom has no species barrier. Every day, as she worked to give oppressed species the tools they needed to fight back, she was reminded that the desire for freedom was universal. The effect of humanity's victory was growing stronger every day. Species that had been slaves for centuries were suddenly rising up in rebellion. Worlds that had sent tribute to the empires for thousands of years were declaring their independence. The careful order that the three great powers had maintained for millennia was crumbling like a house built on sand, on Earth. Admiral Kim Jae-ho watched the reports streaming in from across the galaxy. 17 systems had declared independence in the past week alone. The hegemony was recalling its fleets from the outer territories to protect its core worlds. The Dominion was facing rebellions on 40 different planets, was being disrupted by the simple idea that individuals could choose their own destiny. It is working, he said to his staff during their morning briefing. The empires are falling apart faster than they can respond. Every world we liberate inspires 2 more to rise up. Every successful rebellion proves that the empires can be beaten. The age of galactic empires was ending, not through conquest, but through the simple idea that no being should have to kneel to another. Humanity had lit a spark that was becoming a fire, and that fire was spreading to every corner of the galaxy. Years had passed since the great battle that changed everything. 8 now. Fleet Admiral Kim Jae-ho stood in the center of Unity Station, a massive space structure that orbited Earth like an artificial moon. The station was brand new, built specifically for this historic moment. Around him sat representatives from 300 different worlds, each one a species that had once been under the control of the great alien empires. The meeting hall was enormous, with seats designed for creatures of all shapes and sizes. There were the blue-skinned Zeltans, who had been the first to ask for human help. There were the reptilian warriors from Kepler 44b, who had learned guerrilla tactics from Major Imselji. There were dozens of other species, all sitting together as equals for the first time in their history. "Today we make history," Admiral Kim announced to the assembled delegates. His voice carried clearly through the translation systems that allowed every species to understand him in their own language. "Today we formally end the age of galactic empires and begin something new. We are creating the Free Worlds Alliance built on the simple idea that all thinking beings deserve to be free." The crowd stirred with excitement. For most of these species, freedom was still a new concept. Many had been slaves for so long that their great-grandparents had never known what it meant to make their own choices. Near the front of the hall, a figure slowly stood up. It was Citizen Zelther, who had once been the emperor of the hegemony. 2 years ago, he had commanded 1,000 worlds and billions of slaves. Now he was just another citizen, though his crystalline body still caught the light in beautiful patterns as he moved. I wish to speak," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The proud being who had once demanded tribute from countless worlds now struggled to find words. "My people, the former hegemony, we formally request membership in your alliance." The words were clearly difficult for him to say. Just 2 years ago, he had been sending demands to Earth, expecting humans to bow down and accept slavery. He was the one asking for help. "Our worlds face starvation," he continued, his voice growing stronger but still humble. "Without the trade networks that your coalition controls, our people cannot get the food and resources they need to survive. We need your help." President Shin Young-ju, Earth's first elected leader since all of humanity had united under one government, smiled politely. She had been chosen to represent Earth in this new galactic community, and she understood the importance of this moment. "Request will be considered by the Alliance Council," she said with the same diplomatic courtesy that the aliens had once shown to humanity. "However, there are conditions that must be met first." Zolthair nodded eagerly. "What are your terms?" The terms were completely different from what the empires had once demanded. There were no requirements for tribute or slavery. Instead, the conditions were simple but firm. Abolish all forms of forced labor, grant full rights to all thinking beings regardless of species, and contribute to the common defense against any remaining imperial holdouts. Ambassador Kong Hae-young, representing the human diplomatic corps, stood to address the former imperial leaders. Her words would be remembered and quoted for generations to come. "We offer you the same choice you once offered us," she said clearly.
Yes.
"Surrender your old ways of thinking and join the community of free worlds, or face isolation and irrelevance." In the new galaxy, the difference was obvious to everyone in the hall. When the empires had offered surrender, they had meant slavery and exploitation. When humans offered surrender, they meant giving up tyranny in exchange for freedom and cooperation. Dr. Song Ji-hoon, who now directed the Galactic Reconciliation Project, was working with former imperial scientists to rebuild worlds that had been damaged by centuries of exploitation. His project was helping war orphans from dozens of species learn to live in peace with their former enemies. The old empires ruled through fear, he explained to a group of young beings from many different worlds. They made people afraid to speak, afraid to think, afraid to dream of something better. We are going to rebuild through hope. We are going to show everyone that cooperation works better than conquest. As the ceremony continued, Admiral Kim Jae-ho thought about the incredible journey that had brought them to this point. It had started with an arrogant transmission from aliens who thought humans were primitive savages. They had demanded surrender, tribute, and slavery. They had expected humans to beg for mercy. Instead, humanity had chosen to fight for something. The galaxy had almost forgotten the idea that thinking beings should be free to choose their own destiny. That simple idea had spread like fire across the stars, inspiring rebellions and revolutions on hundreds of worlds. The galaxy had wanted negotiation on the Empire's terms. Instead, they had gotten something far better, freedom on everyone's terms. Now, as representatives from 300 worlds raised their hands to vote for the new alliance, Admiral Kim realized that humanity had given the galaxy the greatest gift possible. Not conquest, not domination, but liberation. The age of empires was over. The age of freedom had begun. Outside the great windows of Unity Station, Earth hung in space like a blue jewel, the homeworld of the species that had taught the galaxy how to be free.